Hello. I would like to talk about, in a free society, capitalism versus communism. Now, I guess there's a lot of stigma and assumptions with both because they are associated with governance, um, which in free society they most likely wouldn't in most situations. They would not be tethered, or identified as much. But to begin, I have to talk about the balance of unproductive labor versus productive labor. Now, right now, it's very unbalanced in that most labor is unproductive, and we have very few people who are, I guess, growing the food and the things that we need in compared to the ratio of the entire population. And certainly it's good for it to be balanced, but in as far as is if communism is superior to capitalism, we will have to see based on in the free market if basically if there's more unproductive labor or more productive labor. And uh, when we have the freedom to do so, we'll see elements of both. Labor is unproductive and valued subjectively until it can manifest into a purpose. For example, how a new scientific theory could create a new invention or an innovation that could revolutionize something and change the world. Artists and musicians, their work is always valued subjectively, and so they are to be enslaved by masters, whether it be in a court with a king, or whether it be to a label, and they are at least dependent upon an audience, or whoever they have to rally people behind them. And unless they can find ulterior means of living, that there'd be some other way that they would get what they need to survive. Our food is the life force, and it's controlled by unproductive masters and governance. We are basically one step away from serfdom. Yes, the farmers, they own the land that they grow their food on, but they are controlled what to grow and how much land they can have, and there's lots and lots of restrictions on the little shred of pie slice on the chart that counts as productive labor. If the serfs not only owned land they tilled, but also were not dependent upon markets, wages, masters, rulers, and regulations, then freedom would prosper in leaps and bounds, and it would allow society to innovate in new, amazing ways. And certainly, I suppose there would be. I think people like to think of there being many different new cities built, and certainly in a free society there would be many new communes and villages and cities built where there'd be different ideologies of economics within each one. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have people from Virginia migrating to communes all the way in Colorado, or there aren't going to be these huge migrations. We aren't going to destroy former cities and build an entirely new society. It's going to be mixed, I think. It's going to be, you're going to see people who are capitalists mixed in with communists, and the distinction is going to be very iffy. And as to how iffy it's going to be, well, What I would like to see personally is that people would basically, while it's still their right to grow their own food and eat that food, breaking their dependence on, I don't know, kind of giving the middle finger to the FDA and to uh, the general food industry by becoming self-sufficient, at least in areas that are vital. Now, on the brink of economic collapse, we have basically two options, and that is to become self-sufficient or to become enslaved. If there was, and we are headed in a direction where there would be an economic collapse, and we would need to choose many different currencies, and we could either have online currencies, or we could have different commodities used as currencies, or we could have a straight up barter system, or we could choose to have no money at all. And that no money at all option would be what communists many times would take. And sure, they would probably dabble in commodities here and there, but largely, I would think that what the communists in communities would do is that they would allow essentially the capitalists to innovate without being dependent on their labor. People who say, "Hey, I don't feel any ties to my possessions," and and they it's not necessarily where they think, "Oh, well, what's good for the community is good for all, so we're going to force you to do something." Like, you can still respect the non-aggression principle and the right to self-ownership, um, while being a communist. At least in my opinion, I think that you can. In that, well, okay, sure, Jimmy down the street, he has a gun. He hates people coming into his house, and and essentially, that's Jimmy's down the street's choice. Me, if I don't feel like you can steal from me because I don't really have any tie to my possessions, and I grow food and I give that food to whoever farms on my land, or whoever lives within the community surrounding, or to anyone who just visits my home, if that's then why would people be burning down my crops? Why would people be stealing to me if it's their benefit to have me in that community? They wouldn't. So, I mean, and we can start these kinds of things now. We don't have to wait till free society to establish all these communes. People can just go and start growing things and giving away these things to people. And once they are less dependent on, hey, who's gonna feed me? Hey, when's my next paycheck coming? They are basically less tied to being cogs in a machine, and that would give them more opportunity to innovate and to trade blueprints and ideas, and eventually we might see where there is absolutely no distinction the between the communist and the capitalist, where it'll be for some things we'll rely on each other for, and for some things we will rely on ourselves for. And it's already like that to an extent, but it's become ridiculously in favor of what we rely on others for in the wrong things, and I guess in the wrong things we rely on ourselves for. But I don't know. Never mind. But essentially, my main point is I'm not sure if capitalism or communism, not sure which one is superior, but I think that in free society you'd have both communists and capitalists living amongst each other and providing for each other. If you're a communist, then I don't know. Maybe we'll see communes. The one thing that bugs me about communes is that I feel like privacy. And I mean, I live in a Western society where it's like we have this idea of, oh, we have a right to privacy, even though of course we don't. But I mean, if I go in the bathroom, don't follow me in the bathroom, or I don't. Never mind. And in communes, if you're sleeping in a cabin with like 20 other people, it just screams cabin fever. I don't know. I think you'd go crazy. So it's good to have people where they can have a place where they can go to be alone, which is increasingly becoming difficult in a growing society. So thanks. Love to hear your thoughts.